Okay, we still have 1 hour, and I mean the fact that we start tomorrow at 10 should kind of boost our energy for the last hour. We thought, if you agree, we would not do a kind of reporting back from each group unless a group has prepared something. Oh, you have prepared. Okay, then we let you go with that. Otherwise, feel free to kind of reflect a little bit the discussion that we had in our groups, and also maybe really to try, maybe not in the end to answer, but to point out some elements of what should be the vision, the political vision and strategy of the international trade union movement. Sometimes we forget in our discussions what we wanted to discuss. And my suggestion would be first to open up the floor to do that, and then to give the panel a final kind of possibility to sum up and to comment and so forth. So then, Sveta, I would suggest that you start, if you report back from the group.
So we thought that we had quite a good discussion on ideas, and it would be good to share with you. It's group number 3. While listening to the last session, we have noticed a self-criticism, which is seen as a progress from trade union leadership, because till today, when there is some union leaders, when they speak about self-criticism, they are seen as not being loyal to its organization. So, and this is something which is it's a good change, and it should not be seen as non-loyal, but as an opportunity for changing into a better way. Because criticisms usually come from issues which have to be solved. There was a proposal that the global unions, in their future work, that we have to clean them from the global unions. It was said that all global unions have yellow unions inside. And then we have to do, global unions have to do a policy themselves up, not to have the obstacles inside. But it's not only for the global unions, but also from the national unions. But it is that we have to start this cleaning of democratization and cleaning of the movement. At the same time, paying attention to the principles, and there was also a proposal maybe to do a kind of external monitors, that we see that really union is independent before it gets affiliated, for instance, or that I'm also from the IUF, that's why I feel also like one of the jobs I also have to participate in the congress of our members, to see whether it was a democratic congress, democratic elections, and also how they delegate to the international meetings, because there is a criticism that national unions that the delegations are not elected democratically, not the right people are coming to our congresses or our meetings. Also, we have to clean corruption. There is an issue of corruption in some of the unions, and we also discussed the relation with China, and also the example with the Transport Federation, this agreement, memorandum. In the discussion, people had very much respect to the International Transport Federation, but it was critical, this memorandum. Because, why? We have looked at for instance, at the former Soviet, also compared with the Soviet Union's Soviet Union trade unions, which were organization of the Communist Party, and they were used to oppress the workers. And then we also listened to yesterday's discussion on how, for instance, in Apple factories, the workers did strikes, and the trade union came and beat them to ask them to go back. So some of us saw this with respect to the union, and a lot of good things is done. We saw this agreement not really with the union, but with the Communist Party. And we thought that the work has to be done with workers where the struggle is, and not with nomenclatura of oppressing people. So it's a wrong way to go, because this wording of we should not keep Chinese workers are isolated, or China is really about, and going this way, it's a wrong way, because this organization is oppressive, and the other way, real unions are not allowed, and are not allowed because of them. They are the reason. We also had this also in this process of democratization of the global unions, and also of the national unions, how to make that there is the struggle of workers, and there are union officials. It doesn't matter whether they are national. Usually, many can be national, and there is a gap between the union officials and the workers' struggles, and this is a problem we have in the union, because union officials are seen too much close to the government, to the struggle. And one example was the situation in Greece, when the workers were in the movement, but the union officials came with declaration to say yes to the referendum. And there is this gap in reality on different political or how to go when the union leadership say yes and workers with the whole society say no. And now there is a change in Greece that some of the union leaders have to resign, because they saw that they don't represent anybody. They should not be this gap or cut this link from the struggle and what's the union officials' policy and declaration they say. We also started to think about the once question also about whether our work will go into direction of a better capitalism or make a different society, and one of the proposals was that that we should concentrate on the means, not on the ends, but it's one of the proposals, but it's more on the process, to keep ourselves near the social movements, because now we are seen by the social movements in France or in Spain, in Greece. The social are having much more success and progress, and we are seen, many hate us, that we are on different side than workers' side, and that we are with them by keeping with social movements, by trying to make the society, but having like a link with bread and butter. It was this kind of proposal. Thank you. About Russia. We also discussed this fraternal solidarity of the Vice President of Russian Federation to the fascist party in France, and it was a surprise that nobody knew that from unions. They don't know about this, and this information was taken seriously, and some of the group members said that they will go home and ask, the unions will ask, for instance, the members in the UK will ask TUC whether they knew about this. In this case, they have to take out such organizational leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Bolton?
So, I was in group one, and we had a really rich and quite profound discussion about this is what I think, though, so this isn't really a reflection. This isn't our group's consensus. We started out talking for quite a while about the inadequacies of the global unions. And I was thinking quite a lot of Clara's example, and what really occurred to me was that the real breakdown there was not the global union, it was her own union. It would be a contact person within PCS who's able to make that. Clara works in the cultural sector. As soon as she had acted in that sector, her union should have linked her into a global network of, apparently there is one in PSI, cultural and education workers, so that when there was a dispute, that relationship is already there. You've already had communication with people around the world, and that work has all been done beforehand. I don't see the global unions being in a position to be able to respond to every request that comes in with solidarity actions. I think the work of the global unions is in building up networks. But the real challenge for all of us is to get our own unions to think internationally and to plug us into those networks. My union, which is Unite, has sent me 6 emails, 1 text and a phone call about the Labour leadership over the past month. I've had nothing about Greece. I've had nothing ever about any international issue ever raised by my union. And I think that is a real problem, and I think it's something we seriously need to shift within our unions. The other thing which I think would be useful, once again it needs to be our unions that make this decision, but I would like to see local unions branding themselves with global union logos, or some kind of identification, so that a member knows that you're not just for PCS or UNIA, but you are a member of a global union. And when you see a request for solidarity from somewhere else in the world, you don't feel I'm supporting another union somewhere else. You get that sense of that is me, I'm part of that. That is our union. And most workers don't know that global unions exist. And it feels like it's the local unions that are keeping that a secret. I would really like to see, on a structural level, something like a new kind of rep in a union. So in UK unions at the moment we have shop stewards, health and safety reps, learning reps, environmental, green reps. I would like to see an international rep who isn't something where there's just a handful of them in some branches, but something which you see often in workplaces. Most workplaces have an international rep, and that rep is Unite's representative, lay representative to the IUF, to the ITF, whatever. If you need people to go and monitor conferences, you don't have the staff to be able to go to conferences and see if the process is democratic. That is the kind of thing that I would national network of lay members being able to do. Those maintaining those networks so that it comes out of the hands of bureaucrats and into the hands of networks. And finally, I think the primary role of the global unions is to help facilitate this and to create the networks, plug their members into each other, get their affiliates sharing the best campaigning ideas and supporting each other to develop their political vision.
Wonderful. Very concrete suggestions here. Dave, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment actually. Totally agree with what Alton just said, and I think that to a certain extent we get the global union federations we deserve. It's not.
I'm not sure how to take that.
They're to a greater extent democratic organisations, and they are. Our unions do have a vote and a voice in all of them. And when a union does articulate a demand from the Global Union Federation articulately, they will respond, and they have to. But the problem often is that sometimes, for example, a union will only have one contact given to the Global Union Federation. It might be the General Secretary, it might be the International Officer, and that person is the gatekeeper between the membership and the Global Union Federation. So part of what we've got to do is bring the global unions down into the union itself. And that's extraordinary. So the democratization of our own international union policy in our own unions is actually the first step. How do we make the international work of our own unions answer, sorry about this, but answerable to the membership. And that, for example, that idea of having on union cards, your membership cards, you know, the name of the Global Union Federation that we are affiliated to. And actually, in the Global South, you find that very frequently.
Yeah.
You know, when you get given a business card by a leader of, you know, many unions in the Global South, not just the Global South, but often small unions, they're really proud of the fact that they're affiliated. And the level of awareness you get, as partly because of the education programs that the global unions run, but the level of awareness about global unions in unions in the Global South is far higher than in the Global North. It's very interesting.
Interesting. I'd like to
Yes, I would just like to add to what Walton said to Group 1, 2 points. One point is that there was also a discussion about, which actually links with what you just said, that the global unions must be influenced by the local unions, and this must be a bottom-up process. And it seemed a little bit from your presentation earlier on that there's kind of a gap between the local unions and the global unions. So this should be changed. That was one discussion. And the other one was also that the global unions, they have, apart from the network and the platform function, they have also a political function, probably more so in the future because of what you mentioned, that we're challenge with TISA on the one hand, but also TTIP for the private global unions for the private sector, industry sector, where we must be aware of that the unions are not all of the same opinion. Like I just raised the point, for instance, in Germany, big and very influential union, IG Metall, is for TTIP because they say it's good for export, it's good for the companies, so it's good for the people, so it's good for the members. So the same rhetoric the employers have. So we're facing real challenges there. We're facing real challenges. Yes, it's a shame Industrial Global is not here, but there are probably some reasons for that we can't discuss here. But so we're facing real political challenges also globally that we have to tackle with the global unions, and we can't just leave it up to the ITUC because it's not, you know, it's really wrong. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Corinne. Stuart, you wanted to...
No, I just wanted to mention, we're going back on the issue of the logos and things. For example, and Alan would be able to tell you this better than I, from Kenya. If you're a truck driver in Kenya and you belong to the Kenya Drivers Union and affiliated to the ITF, you get given an ITF driver's card. And that means, because if you're in Kenya and you're driving up on the northern corridor up from Kenya into Rwanda or Burundi, you cross the border, you cross the international border. How is your union going to protect you now once you've left Kenya and you're in a Kenyan union? So they have a cooperation agreement between unions in 5 countries along that corridor. And with their ITF driver's card, it means they get into trouble with the police in Rwanda, then they can call up the local union, the Rwanda union, who takes over. So as soon as they cross the border, the Rwanda union takes over responsibility for their welfare as a driver in there. We've never been able to do in Europe. Drivers who are driving across all international borders within Europe, we've never been able to introduce an ITF card amongst European drivers. But it is something that we're working on, but for some reason we've never managed to do it. But we managed to do it in both West Africa and in East Africa.
I just want to take up the point you made about your national unions as well, because I think that's actually right at the linchpin. And I think just to is that we do in international institutions. International institutions are sort of like their own government but global, but in fact there is very little global governance. What you have is international institutions are federated structures, and so what that means is influencing them is actually about influencing national governments. And the ability of your unions to influence national governments on international positions is the bread and butter of the work that certainly I do around trade and tax and other issues. And my biggest challenge on a day-to-day basis is trying to get national unions to spend their political capital, their financial resources, their staff time, not on a fight to get a better bargaining agreement because the resources are scarce, but to actually focus on some of these international questions. So that's an internal point, and I think that's some of the most important things you can do is take that analysis. Because the second point is when we speak to general secretaries and leaders of global unions, what they say to us is they would like to do more. They would like to do more, but that their lay membership it'll be hard for them politically because they face elections every few years as well, to justify that to their lay membership when there's a fight on about their pension fund, when there's a fight on about the next collective bargaining agreement, when there's job losses going on, when there's retrenchments. And so part of the answer is to actually educate within your own unions about the importance of the international issues to your lay membership, so your lay membership give the political space to your leadership to then do some of the things that you're saying is very important. And that has an interesting political corollary because whilst lobbying your government is important, actually, regardless of whether you're progressive or a right-wing government, your governments will be more. When we do the lobbying work, we find that lobbying work is more successful when there's mobilising, there's political pressure on the ground. It's almost pointless going in governments if you don't do the other work. And so this, what's interesting is to hear about the text messages and whatever else. That's the sort of stuff that we need to be doing around international work, so that there's this grassroots pressure on governments as well. And again, that is national union work.
Can I come in? I'm just on a roll now. So. No, it's just you could triple our income. If we tripled our income in the ITF, we still wouldn't have enough money. We still wouldn't have enough money to do all the stuff that we need to take on that. So it has to be, we have to change the relationship, and this is what we're trying to work on at the moment, change the relationship with our affiliates, because as I say, if we had 3-4 times the money, it's still not enough money. It has to be that we're no longer an organisation where we have affiliates who pay their membership dues and then they expect certain levels of service from us. They expect some research, they expect some training seminars, they expect some meetings that they go to in which they can network. Those are all useful things. They expect international representation, international bodies. We still have to do that, but what we have said is that can't be all that we do, and we have to really be selective about what we do, about what's effective. And what we have to move on is how can we work together with other unions in our industry to hurt capital, to really increase our ability to smack them in the mouth, because that's the only time that they really listen to us. But that means us focusing our resources, identifying what are the things we're in a position to do. And it's a shifting culture away from I pay my union dues. It's like an insurance company. I pay my premium and now I want my bit of research. I want you to answer me about this, this and this and this. And we're going to have to say no to quite a lot of those things if we want to do the other stuff. But it's a major cultural shift about the relationship, and we can only do it. We can't, when we say we do the other stuff, it's not us do the other stuff. It has to be with our unions. We will never have the resources to take on major global corporations and seriously affect how they relate to their workers from the ITF. It has to be from Unite, from the Swedish Transport Workers Union, from the Zambian Workers Union, from whoever. It has to be a very different engagement. Unless we shift to that, then we will just be able to produce this limited set of support and international solidarity. It has to go to another level. And the only way that depends on the leadership of your unions, and that depends on the pressure coming from below. It requires your members to have much, much more information about what the possibilities are, the kind of stuff that you're doing now. But it has to be that shift about what's the expectation from a global union federation. Is it this bunch of people that we never give quite enough money to and therefore never quite deliver the goods for us, and it's their job to do it? Or is it that this is our organisation and it's a part of our strategy? It's not the international stuff we do that's bolted onto the side of our national strategy. It's part of our national strategy. You cannot have a national strategy nowadays without having an international strategy. That's the shift that we have to make.
And just on the numbers, I agree completely with that. Just to really crystallise the numbers for you. I mean, in the UK, the average sort of worker on the average wage probably has about 200 quid in union fees. They send 50p of that 200 quid off to the international. That's the so Unison, which is one of our affiliates, actually is a big one. They've got 600 people in their head office. We have 25 in our head office. So so it shows you the so we can't be seen as the people that do it all. What we can be seen is as you said, the people that coordinate it or are part of a strategy or to work with.
Okay, I have Clara and
just about this money issue. I mean, obviously because it's global unions, if you want to take pain somewhere, it's going to cost a bit of money. But I think this is not just about money. I think this is about capacity, what people do. And again, I go back to this National Gallery campaign where most of the campaigning we've done, most of the publicity we've done, we've actually done it ourselves at branch level. It wasn't the National Union doing it at all. Members have been making banners themselves, printing the leaflets where we can, photocopying on the side in the workplace, and we've been using social media. And I think that that's something that global union should use more. Share campaigns. I was retweeting one of the ICF Africa Twitter about the victimization was happening in agility. This I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about this, corridor and what was happening there. This type of event allowed me to learn a lot about the struggle of other workers around the world, and I've never found out through my own union or through even websites. So.
Okay.
Adrian from Unia, Switzerland. Yes, I'm happy to hear from the ghost that yes, the institutions are not so important, because my personal view most of the time was that our European trade union movement all the time is dealing with all of these institutions and has no time for the real work, to work together with their members and help to organize. And I think this has to be the strategy. Yes, we always have too less money, we always have too less personnel also in our national unions. We always will have this problem. And yes, then the groups have to help organize, have to help make the strategies, and then I'm sure then they will also get more important and interesting for the people, but not if I always have the feeling that you are in Brussels.
Yeah, hello, Fatima from Comisiones Obreras. No, I wanted to make a reflection regarding fees. Because
stand up, Fatima, stand up.
You know that we are a member of PSI, ITF, Uni, Policeman, Journalist, Musician 7. Okay, and during this period of crisis, we have experienced a massive loss of members, because in Spain, if they are not working, they are not members of a union. Forget it. So we have been facing such an economical crisis, and now we are having this. We are taking this internal reflection, regarding the international labor movement, because at which point can we? International unions have increased the fees. Some of the Mediterranean countries are facing a lot of problems for paying, and we want, as Stewart was mentioned, we want something in back. You want not to receive just an email twice per year, but you want something there. And somebody can tell you, oh, but you are not very solidaric because you are paying a lot of money, and this is very good for cooperation or for, but we are making this reflection. It's like, can we pay a lot of money that maybe we don't have, and we are doing the effort as an exercise of responsibility when even our delegates, they don't know that there are global labor, there are global unions. I know that it's our responsibility, but if I tell how much money I pay at the international level, probably a member will say, "Are you crazy?" Or our members pay 10 euros per month. Well, it has been 10 euros on something, and it is distributed in all the big structure. So we are making this effort, but I think also the international unions should pay attention to what we have been saying for many years. Like, look, we are in a hurry. Remember, we have the example of Greece, Portugal, that as they cannot pay, they don't participate anymore. And we are losing very valuable members that are facing very strong and hard problems in their countries. So I think this reflection should be done in a much more deep way. And thank you.
I still have two. First, it's the French colleague there, and then
I'm Cedric, working for PSI. Just to give a short answer to Clara. My job also as a youth coordinator, I created such spaces. I created a Facebook account, I created Twitter.
Sorry, can't hear you.
Sorry. I was, part of my job was to create this space that Clara is calling for on social media. So everybody that is doing things in the field can be sent to the global federations to be exposed to the other colleagues. And my struggle now is just to get in touch with the right people to find who is the gatekeeper in the unions, so I can get the information to know where do we have a struggle in at the workplace, a campaign, so we can push it forward, call for solidarity and everything. And we have to, as global unions, also in the unions, to look who is the gatekeeper and West, and how to avoid them becoming bottlenecks instead of gatekeepers, because that's why we are struggling so much to get in touch with each other.
Daniel, do you allow me, Thierry, to give Daniel first?
I've just got a question, because I hear what you're saying. I agree of the importance of global action and global political perspective. My question is what do you want a global union federation to do? Because you've got a few of us here. I mean, I'm interested to know what in concrete terms, what it is you think we can effectively do for you.
Put us in touch with other workers. It's one thing.
What did you say?
Put in touch with other workers.
I have Thierry.
So, Thierry from France. I wanted to react to what Fatima you were saying about the economic crisis and the fact that suddenly many workers lose their jobs and they are no longer workers. But I want to react because I think that even if you don't have a job, actually often, you're still a worker because you're still part of the working class.
You are not unionized in the rest of Spain.
But maybe that's the problem, is that trade unions should people even if they don't have official jobs.
Yeah.
Because even if you don't have a job, you might continue to work actually. And being in the informal sector, actually there are many people, I guess in Spain or in Greece, who may not have jobs, but they have to work doing different things to survive. And they should, suddenly they're not part of a union, but actually the unions could think work outside the usual workplace and the usual jobs. Because still they are still part of the working class, if you think in terms of class, it means we don't have the means of production.
Yeah, but sorry for interrupting you, but when you have to feed your kids and then you have to cut your funds because you don't have incomes, really, in Spain people say, oh, I was paying 11 euros or 10 euros for the union, I don't pay it anymore because I'm not, and we have a fee for unemployed people, which is very low, it's like 5 euros. But a lot of people, they say that they don't want to join the union because they are not working anymore.
Yeah.
So it's hard, we face that.
In my union,
it's different reality. It's a different reality.
In my union, people who don't have the money to pay their fees, we say, okay, you can join for free. We adapt to the situation of the worker. Officially, it's like 10 euros a year, which is quite low. But if there's a sex worker who's on the street who doesn't have enough money to eat, we say, okay, if you want to be a part of the union, you don't have to pay.
Yeah, but I have to pay their
Could be,
Can I just say, it was me.
continue maybe at
It was
party.
it was me who raised the issue of the fees, but I think I've actually shot myself in the foot. The point of raising the issue of the fees was to say paying dues does not make you a union. The money, the accounts of the union don't make you powerful. What makes you powerful is have workers combining in collective action. That's what makes you power. That's what gives you power. But a guff with 25 people in an office isn't what is going to make you powerful. The power comes from the workplace, from engaging workers. That's why I spoke earlier. I spoke about engaging civil society, because the question is what makes you powerful, and it's not the Jews.
Okay, any more friends? Yes, please.
My questions to RSP for PSI. We have been facing difficulty, challenges, I guess this privatization process, especially in developing countries, particularly the essential goods and services like water, electricity, and then these types of services that government and financial institutions are trying to put us in a accept the terms and conditions of privatizations, and that's what we have been facing difficulties there. At the same time, we are a human being living in the society, and government and those financial institutions are showing us evidence that these institutions are using a lot of public finances to sustain these services. That are the essential services, and we have no choice, like water, electricity, road, and so on. So these are the basic and infrastructures, and for these, everybody, all the people, all the citizens of the country, they sometimes unite. It's okay. Most of the time they oppose the privatization. Success. But some other institutions that is run by public government, but they are running in deficits. For example, running the factories, running the tobacco companies, running in the brewery, beer factories. There are some, those days, late 1950s, 60s, those times government has to expend a lot of money to build factory and give employment. But these are negatively interpreted, and people working there, they are the lazy people, and they don't bother about their efficiencies, no productivity, even they are corrupted, and sometimes we also feel, I sell my labor power in one company, rest of the company I buy, all services I buy from my salary. So in that case, the capitalist, the one is a state, or sometimes it's a public-private partnership. They are invisible. The visible thing is we, the working class people. Like I am buying the services and products from there, and I'm not satisfied. So this is the most debate in the public level, and it should be in the trade union priorities. So how we respond the low level corruptions. I'm not talking about the corruptions that happens in the high level in FIFA in the but I'm talking this kind of corruption that is the low level, that is the employees level and working people level. So that is a big concern, and that is the big challenge for public service international. Its affiliates in developing countries. That's my point.
Sorry, I didn't get your name and where you're from.
I'm Tilak. I'm from Nepal.
And from which union?
I work as a organizer in uni in Nepal. But there are some which also belongs to public service. There are dual affiliations. Some unions are there in PSI, and some unions also are in unionized.
There are. Respond and then I take you up.
But quickly, I don't accept that public sector workers are the only workers that are lazy. Public sector workers are the only workers that are corrupt. What I would say is that we have much higher standards of public sector workers because we pay taxes. There's enormous amounts of corruption that goes on in the private sector workforce. There's an enormous amount of laziness. PSI is working on corruption as an issue. We think it's a very, very important issue. We think of those sorts of arguments that public sector workers are corrupt and lazy actually is one of the drivers, the ideological drivers of privatisation. And we would say that there are certain public services that are for the poorest workers in the world who don't own their own house, who don't have assets, their wealth, their major source of wealth is the public services that their governments own collectively on their behalf. And we think it's a real threat to those when we sort of use that rhetoric. You raised a couple of other bits and pieces. I'm happy to have a chat to you on the side because it may not be necessary for everyone to be engaged in.
Okay, now Minaha, next.
I'm Minaha from Sri Lanka. Actually, I'm not part of any global union, but I'm just thinking to answer your question, what you expect, right? I'm not talking on behalf of anyone here. My idea, I'm just thinking, strengthen us, right? For example, if you take tea plantation in Sri Lanka, right? It's highly exploited sector. In India, same as in Kenya, right? So is it possible global unions to take up, yes, locally we are struggling, we are doing our campaigns and all. Make it like an international campaign because it is coming from West, there are a lot of companies and all. So is it possible to do in that way, right? So again, the factories, all the garment factories, all the sports item factories open up in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, if you take all that country. So is it possible global unions to whoever, right, to connect us, the solidarity and in another level which we can't do it. It's like giving your hand, support, where we can't reach, right? It's that kind of support I think it's very important.
It's happening.
It's happening.
It is happening.
No, it is happening, but it's not enough. That's what I'm saying. Is it that what way you want? And I'm just thinking because the who are member of certain global unions, right? It's like it's very difficult. It's not a sectoral base. It's happening, So if one union is only, then it's like different, It's like the total common issues I'm talking about. So can you come together or separate? I don't know. In that level, I'm expecting. It's just my.
Your union does not have an international affiliation, does it? Or does it? No. Okay, yeah.
Step one.
Okay.
That makes it difficult.
Sveta is very eager to respond, but I go to this. You keep in mind what you have. So, Ingmar.
Right. You can have all kinds of different problems, really. One of the problems for the Swedish trade union, I think the Nordic trade unions, Norwegian friends have to, if I'm wrong, the Swedish system for collective bargaining is very, very complicated. And it's from the late 30s, so it's 70, 80 years old. And before that, we had the highest statistics of strikes in Sweden, and we had to do something working labor movement to get stopped with because it was strikes all the time. Strikes could go on for years, and then now the unions have billions of crowns in. We never use it. Last time we were out in a big strike, it was 1980, and then it was the employers that locked out because they want to crush the unions. This means it's very, very hard to get to collective action, and so we rarely do that. And you can wonder in the last crisis, one major union made an agreement with the employers to lower the workers' salaries to save the companies. My question is, the members hated this mostly, and most of the shop stewards hated this solution. But the leaders, the bureaucracy of the metal union took it. They didn't save one job. Not a single job was saved in the end, because when this term was over, they sacked them anyway. They would have done it anyway. The only one who lost was the workers. Instead of telling the bosses, you have to lower your profits. That would be the union's answer to this. So my thinking is that we have, in the Swedish trade unions at least, we have forgotten why we are there. In the short run, to better our members' situation, and in the long run, to get another society, another order in the world. And that you have the problem. Bureaucracy on one side, the members on the other side. We have a high density, low collective action. And that's a problem for us. And it's a different problem that you have in Africa and in Sri Lanka, whatever. You have another problem, but we have this problem. And therefore, it's very, very hard. And very few of the unions that really act international. Transport Workers Union do act quite a lot international, but the most union doesn't really. They don't carry shit. We're happy that they have very fancy offices and very high salaries, the bureaucracy. That's a problem, really. I wonder if I can go home now.
Okay, I still have the Indonesian colleague, and Sveta and Baba, and then maybe we do a closing up.
I'm Sastro, I'm from Indonesia, Confederation of Indonesian Republic. So, before I'm joined in the National Committee Solidarity, I'm a national coordinator in that. We fight about the union busting, also the privatization, so contractual and outsourcing workers. And I will share about the problem in the state-owned company. I think the more union is joined to the public service international. The problem is more workers in the state-owned company in Indonesia is outsourcing. I think like in the electricity, 70% is outsourcing. But the permanent worker is joined to the trade union, and the outsourcing not yet joined to the trade union. We are in about the trade union. Why the outsourcing workers not joined to your union? This is different. I think it's problem. Now we organize for the outsourcing workers, but not yet joined to the permanent trade union in the factory, like in the electricity, also in the Angkasa Pura. Angkasa Pura is airport. I think it's problem if we don't have of the direction. The workers, we cannot the discrimination about the organization to the join to the trade union, for example. For our direction is how the permanent workers with the trade union also embrace for the outsourcing workers. We now organize in the three provinces in Lampung in South Sumatra, also in Central Java, also in the East Java province, but not yet to join in to the trade union in the permanent workers. If join, I think the trade union is strong to fight the union busting, to fight to the contractual workers, also to fight to the privatization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Second one?
I just want to, because it's mentioning also plantation workers from different countries. In Laos, we do have a coordination and we do have campaigns. For instance, in India, we have a living wage campaign in plantation workers that they receive only $1 per day. When they starve, they die because they have low wages. And the national law excludes plantation workers from the minimum wage. So that's why we're having this campaign. And also in the coordination, we do have, for instance, the coordination of sugar plantation workers or coordination in subsectors, in tea plantations. So there is work doing.
So in conclusion, sometimes it helps to join the global union organization. This is the kind of message I got. Okay, Mother?
Thank you. If you, in terms of the strategy, one, I would say, particularly with the goals on the private sector, I don't know, I think that the global framework arrangement hasn't been as much delivered as it should. If you are having state and enterprises having governing board from like when we were discussing TTIP yesterday, I think that there's the need, there was a time it was like, oh, it was going to become something serious for handling, but it's like, it's not there again as far as I know. And with regards to dance, I think the narrative is not about that it's not only public sector workers that are corrupt. I think the thing is, when we talk of corruption, there is big head of corruption and then there's leg of corruption. And usually there's some balance between the size of the head and the leg. If there is corruption at all, be it public sector or private sector, look at a fella sang a song, he was saying that, he was even talking of armed robber. The armed robber will steal with gun, 80,000 naira. That was in the early 80s. That pen robbery, that's authority stealing. The corruption of our parliamentarians, executive and what have you, we steal 2 billion naira with just pen. So I think we should not give even more. What corruption are they saying that we are corrupt? Because it's them. It's still corruption is an emblematic one of the degeneration of their system, and also even in the best of systems, it is a strategy for accumulation. It's like someone saying, like in our third world countries, that they carry the money to legislators, but lobbying is a multi-billion naira industry. In the United States, what is lobbying? It's bribery and corruption. So I think we shouldn't give inch of that. No. We should look for the big head of corruption with them. Then I think the issue of our history, particularly for younger, comrades, I think yes, a lot of people can get a lot of things on internet now, but people get lost within that means of it. I think the Gulf, probably even at the sub-regional, regional levels, there was one by I think the Gulf of the journalists, and many people don't know where we are coming from. And history is not just a story of the past. It's not only to learn from, which is also important, but to inspire. I'm happy with this issue of mainstreaming youth and all that. To inspire younger trade unionists, on the basis of our values, our traditions, to learn from the mistakes and to see the strength. And that now brings me to, it is general, and now that's the question of vision. Again, I think, and it's very, very important that rooms for dreaming dreams and seeing vision of post-capitalist transcendence beyond this system should not be constrained by, I'm talking now, the fact of the matter, and it's part of this baggage, I said it earlier, sometimes quite clearly, sometimes more subtly, when it's like, oh, anything outside social democracy, liberal democracy, in the Gulf, people get cold. The bureaucracy of the Gulf. I think that we should, this is the time to, we are saying another world is possible. I think that the Gulf should internalize this and let this blossom within our ranks.
That was almost the final. nevertheless, I would like to give the panel the possibility maybe to respond to some questions, and maybe in the light of the discussion we had, which were from very concrete proposals like transnational union cards to another world is possible, if you could reflect and say this would be the one strategy we really are following already in our global union, or what we really have to take up, which would be the burning one in your maybe that to in a kind of a reflection of the discussion, just as a proposal, if you don't want to.
Possibly the most important thing to do is to educate workers, in their workplaces about the way in which global forces affect their daily life. When workers don't understand that, they won't give the unions the space, to give the GUFs the space to have an effect. For me, that's the thing, because the world has changed. I want to respond to the brother who spoke about precarious work and outsourcing. I think it is probably the most fundamental shift in terms of union power that has come about as a consequence of globalisation. And it pervades everything about. And somebody described it to me as the shift between big roofs to small roofs. When the union movement was forming 100 years ago, we had precarious work, we had no public services, we had corruption, and what we did was we went to the workplace and spoke to workers. 100 years ago, the workplaces had big roofs. Right? You had 300 workers in one place, and they were basically doing the same job, so they all identified with that, and you organised them, and if you got everyone to go on strike, then the company, you had power over the company. The value chains has fragmented that. We don't have big roofs anymore, we have small roofs. We have a small group of workers over here producing a little part, another group of workers over in another country producing another part. We have workers driving those parts between each other. We have people doing the communications to make sure it gets there. So the production process has been fragmented. And what that's enabled bosses to do is to create precarious work, because organising one workplace doesn't give you power anymore. You've got to organise all of the workplaces to get some power. And so it allows outsourcing, for example, because you've got smaller units that are discrete, you can outsource them, and it allows people not to be given permanent jobs. And so reorganising those workers, in my opinion, is the most fundamental job the union movement has got. And this goes back to my original statement that everything old is new again. That was one of the reasons why the union movement formed 100 years ago, 150 years ago. It was to organise precarious workers on docks in San Francisco. And they formed unions to fight that problem. It's not that, it wasn't the other way around. Unions didn't exist and then they fought the problems. They formed to fight precarity. And so reading the history and thinking about how they did that is, I think there's no other way of doing it, and that's tough. I mean, I don't have a particular answer to that. It's certainly the GUFs certainly aren't going to fix that. Probably your national unions aren't going to fix that. You and your workplaces probably are the starting point for that. And it brings to this question of what happens when you have massive success, like they did in the Nordic countries, where unions became part of the state structure. I mean, in the Nordic countries, the unions they manage the pension funds. They're involved in the unemployment distribution and whatever else. Well, what happens when you're in that situation is that you begin to identify with the state and the bosses. And so when we had the financial transaction tax debate, because I'm involved in tax work, it was the Nordic unions in Europe who was saying, we don't want a financial transaction tax. And the reason is because that will decrease the returns to our pension funds that we manage on behalf of our members by 1 or 0.5% each year, and that is not fair on them. They didn't ask the question you asked, which is, do we want to be a little bit better today, or do we want a different world? Because if they'd asked that question, they would have said it's much more important that we tax the richest bankers in the world, because collectively that will create a better world, and we'll perhaps happy 0.3% on our returns to our pension fund in the next 2 years to get there.
In that context, it has also been said that the coalition and alliance with social movements, like has happened in various places in Europe recently, and is is crucial, and I believe that is the case. I think that we absolutely have to have this broad popular coalition to create with the unions, if possible, at the center. But this, of course, as long as we are clear about our own definition of the society that we want, and I think this is why we need a discussion on socialism. It occurs to me that there's been an American socialist author, Marxist theoretician called Hal Draper, who has written a pamphlet called Two Souls of Socialism, and his analysis is that historically there have been always two strands of socialist thinking, which he calls socialism from above and socialism from below. And it is that any particular political tendency has a monopoly on either one, because it cuts across various. I mean, you have concepts of socialism from above, obviously Stalinism, Maoism, etc., but also social democracy. Also, there's authoritarian strands in social democracy. Socialism from below also has a number of tendencies. But one thing is fundamental, which is, as somebody said yesterday, I think, the integral democracy, and the democracy including in the workplace, which is the most authoritarian structure that exists in our society. Actually, where the whole story begins and ends, and this is where ultimately the issue we are facing is revolution. Be clear about that. Now, I should add immediately, revolution is not an event. It is a process. And it's a process that can take a long time. But this is what we have to move towards, and that's we have to organizations to be capable of doing. And it's hard work, and it'll take a long time if we're not overtaken by worse events. Okay.
Stuart.
That's why we have to start. I think what I say is that the one thing that we are certain of is that things will not be the same. Things will change. We will not have the same union movement in 20 years' time. We'll not have the same international union movement in 20 years' time. The one thing that another world is possible is it will happen. What kind of world it is will be up to our ability to organise and our ability to get over our barriers about organising, about our levels of unity. It is, we've talked about communications. We set up a young workers network in the ITF. They communicate with each other through something called WhatsApp that I've never used in my life. I have no idea what they talk about in that. I have no idea what the discussions are in there, but it's happening. Any union bureaucracy that believes it can control communication between workers now, it must be out of its head. We have the facilities now on a global level, national level. Only language is our barrier to be able to communicate with each other cheap for free, virtually, to build networks. The issue is not building networks or communicating is easy. It's to do what, and it's to how we develop that organisation, how we translate it into some form of power that can challenge capital and its ability to operate on a global level. But this stuff is happening. We are not necessarily controlling it or driving it forward, but the more that we can try to understand what is happening, not just what's happening now, but what's going to happen in the future, and how we kind of future-proof ourselves, and how we go along with it. But we will not stay the same, whether we like it or not. We might like to stay the same, but we won't. We can't. It won't. Events will take over. But our future has to be in our hands and all our responsibilities. So I think that unionism is something that is also in your hands, not totally in your hands, all sorts of forces are acting upon it. But part of it is, what's the role of rank and file unionists? What's the role of rank and file activists in developing an international union movement? And we have no God-given right to exist. Global union federations have no God-given right. If we don't serve a useful purpose, we will die. We will die. Unions, if they don't serve if they become irrelevant, if they don't serve a useful purpose, they will die, and some other form of organisation will take over. Some other form of international networking will happen, because people will organise. That is the only thing that people will organise.
Thank you very much. I think we can all give us a big hand.